guys, Laura here. I'm here to do another top 10 Tuesday. I will give you guys a warning. My student teaching job starts next week, so this is the calm before the storm. So I'm trying to get as many videos pre-done as I can and try to post them as far in advance as I can so you guys won't miss a trick. But just warning you, this is the calm before the storm. So this week's theme had a couple of different iterations, and some of these, it was top 10 books that were either a chore to get through, or books that at the end you really enjoyed loving, or books that you just put down. I really can't D enough books. I'm a completist, so I have to know the end of a story. There is one audiobook outstanding on this list that I still have not completed listening to, and I will get to that towards the end of the video. But that was more of like a narrator issue, and I really wasn't in the mood for the book at that moment, so I do still have it, and maybe I will read it eventually, but we will get there. So I'm going to focus on books that I just were a chore to get through, and I really didn't love, and I didn't had a hard time continuing, or series that just I have not finished yet, and book one was, or book two even, just did not captivate me. But the first book I want to talk about is Magnolia. This was the first ever Owl Crate book that I got, and this was like a while ago. This is going on 2 years ago, and I remember I wasn't that fond of the book. I actually wound up meeting the author like a year later, and she was kind of awesome, and I loved the author. But the book had a really weird characters. I wasn't as connected to the characters as I wanted to be, especially the lead, and it was troublesome because I really loved her love interest or her best friend in the novel, and I loved him and I wanted like more from his point of view. But between the pacing in the book was super awkward, and I felt like it was really, really slow, and nothing really happened. And by the end of the book, I felt like nothing happened. So between the problematic pacing and the world building that was just confusing, it was not enough to overcome the one character that I liked in the novel. And I know Aerie did come out, and I did get an e-arc of it. I just never wound up reading it because I just really wasn't motivated to see what happens. I might eventually give it another try because I heard that Jason has a more prominent role in book two, and maybe I will like it better. But right now, I'm just not that interested. But it was an interesting story, and I still wound up staying with Owl Crate, which I love because some of the Owl Crate books that I got were probably one of the best. But it was a rough book, that book, for me to get through. Now, this is the one book on this that I will say that I actually did wind up loving towards the end, but it wasn't what I was expecting in the novel, and I will talk about that now, but it's More Happy Than Not by Adam Soul. It does have elements of Sunshine, The Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, which is another similar premise to it, like the removal of memories so you're not sad and stuff like that. And I had a very hard time with that movie because the pacing was awkward at points. And I felt like that in this novel sometimes because I would get confused about what was being removed from the character's mind, and that was like a confusing element for me, and I wasn't as connected with the characters as I like wanted to be. But by the end of the novel, I thought it was really well done, and I loved the impact of the removal of the memories and stuff like that on the characters. But it was a bit. It wasn't until I got to like 50% of the novel that it really picked up speed for me, and it was just a slow burn. It was the first LGBTQ novel that I like ever read as well, so that was it was so well done. I really love the subsequent books that Adam has wrote. I read They Both Die in the End, and I really enjoyed it. But this was a rougher novel for me to get through, but I really did enjoy it. I wound up giving it 4 stars, and I really do want to re-listen to it, because then maybe I'll appreciate the story a little bit more. But and I really, really do want to read his other novel. But yeah, this was an interesting novel, and I really grew to like it, but it just did not captivate me from page one. The next books I'm going to talk about is The Midnight Queen. I picked up this book because I heard about it on Book Hype, and I actually was reading it when I went to my college reunion like a couple of years ago, and from page one, this book dragged so much. The pacing in this book was such a problem. Again, another pacing issue. But also, the world building just was not my favorite. I felt like the world building was really confusing. And I did not like how the female characters in this novel were treated. I felt like they were just not what I wanted them to be. I wanted so much more out of them, and I just wanted their path to be more adventure based and not marriage based. That's what I felt like it was, and I really had no interest to check out book two. I don't even know if there was a book two. I think there was a book two because I got like a recommendation to like get a good to try to win a Goodreads giveaway that I didn't win. I never win them anyway. But I just had such a problem with the female character and how I liked her as a character, but her path I did not like. And I wanted more. I wanted her to be more an active part in the story, not so passive. You'll see that in a couple other books. I have a really, really problem when your main female characters kind of do nothing. And that was definitely a part of this. But I really wanted to like it. I thought the school, like the Merlin School of Magic, was really cool. It just did not impress me, sadly. The next book I'm going to talk about is When We Were Animals. This is the only book in history that Book Hype has ever recommended and had as a book talk that I really did not like. And I remember I was listening to it and they really liked it, except for one person who me and her, we have very, very similar tastes. She did not like it either. And I was like, okay, as long as I'm not alone. I did not like this book at all. It was a struggle for me to get through, but I actually did get through it. It was basically about this society where like the kids go crazy and they like become almost animals. They give into their animal characteristics. And it was such a brutal and vicious and very, very vulgar story. And those things really made the story hard for me to become connected to. And I needed to become connected to the characters, and I just was not connected to the characters. So it was really, really hard. Like, I didn't like the story, and I wasn't connected to the characters, and I would have needed to like the story to, to be at least a little invested, but I just wasn't, and I just was not impressed. And I think the point of it was that the characters were not supposed to be likable, but for me to like even remotely enjoy the story, they had to be likable characters, and I just could not get behind it. I really struggled to finish it. I did finish it. I still don't know. It wasn't my type of book. So read the summary, see if you might like it, but I just was not impressed. I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was probably more of like a 2-star read. It just was, the world building just did not make sense to me either. So it was just not a good read. Sorry. The next book I'm going to talk about is going to be controversial, and that is Shatter Me. This is the audiobook I talked about before that I got off from Audible, and I don't know if it was the narrator or what it was. I think I read like maybe like I listened to like maybe like 6 chapters of it, and I just really was not interested in continuing. And I think it's because it was so similar to the Darkest Mind series by Alexandra Bracken. Like one of the characters literally was Ruby, and I was in the middle of that series, and I was getting really confused between like who the characters were. So similar. And I read another book subsequently, like after this, that is Cursed by Jennifer Armentrout, that again had like a crazy similar premise. So I think it's really hard for me to read any stories like that unless it's like so drastically different, because I really prefer The Darkest Minds, and I thought Alexandra Bracken handled it so well. And I wasn't that connected to the characters, and I felt like they were just not as spectacular. The world building was not my favorite world either. So maybe one day I'll try reading it and see if that has a different effect. But right now, was not motivated to continue. The next book I'm going to talk about is going to be controversial again, and that is The One by Kira Cass. It's funny because I actually did really like enjoy the Elite. I thought the Elite was a really, really fun story. I've talked about this like in a couple of different recent videos, like ships that I love to hate. I really was not the biggest fan of America and the Prince. And if you have not seen the subsequent novels in this series, you kind of know how the story goes. So I just did not want to get my heart broken because I really did like I really liked Aspen. I know what happens because the books basically tell you, like the sequel books basically tell you what happens. Um, but I just was not like in the mood to like read that my ship did not sail, as you could say. So one day I will get around to this. My Justin's gonna be so upset when he hears this. I still haven't read it though, so maybe I'll really like it. I don't know. I just think I wish the book would have been stayed on the political train because I thought that was like really interesting. Maybe it did. I still have to read it. but I just am not motivated to see my ship not sail. So maybe one day, maybe I'll add it to my audiobook list. We'll see. But yeah, I have not completed the selection series, unfortunately. The next book I'm going to talk about is Until Friday Night. I have a very hard time sometimes with pure romance books that like create very like insular relationships between boys and girls because I think that it really takes away a girl's agency. And that's a big problem I had with this book. And I read it and I love the characters as like individuals because I thought that their journeys were really interesting. But putting them together it created like a very like aggressive relationship. Like he didn't let the girl talk to anybody or didn't let her be around anybody, and I thought that that wasn't what I wanted out of a story. I wanted her to be like a little bit more independent. And they had this plot where like she didn't speak to anyone but she talked to him. And it just felt like a little bit like not what I wanted. And I like them as individual characters. I just wished that instead of like focusing on each other, they kind of focused on, opened up and hosted their friends, made friendships. But if that felt like the only part of the story and there was like nothing else to the story, and it just was not my favorite book. But I did like the characters, so I'll be curious to see what she does in like subsequent novels in the series once I eventually get around to them. But it's just not, it just wasn't my favorite romance that I have ever read, and I'm hesitant to continue on in the series. The next book should be no surprise to anyone, and that is Breaking Dawn. I have vehemently discussed my dislike for the Twilight series, but Breaking Dawn was a hard book to get through. And again, I always say this, if my ship does not sail and I really have really big issues with the other ship, it's a hard book for me to get through. But they literally did the worst thing imaginable to Jacob's character, and I just could not, it was just could not forgive it. So once that happened, I was like done. I was like, I don't even care what happens. But Bella really, her characterization grew to nothing in this novel, and I really did not like it at all, and I just was having a lot of issues with it. But Stephanie Meyer is not the best world builder in general, and I really had a lot of times like having how everything wrapped up. It didn't wrap up in a way that I felt like justified the world. So yeah, it just was not my favorite ending, and I had to struggle to get through it. Everyone loved it. Everyone thought it was so good. I just was not that impressed at all. And this book really turned me off of vampire stories for a while, and it was not until Rochelle Me that I really considered vampires again. But right now, but after this book, I was done. And I did finish it, but I just would never ever read it ever again. This is one of those books that I started, like the series I started, and I really just was not super interested to see what happened. But by the end of the book, I grew more interested, and that is Under the Never Sky. This was right around the time that I was reading a lot of dystopian novels, and I think I had just reached my point. I was like, I don't want to read any more dystopian novels, and I think this is just kind of where that happened. Um, I wasn't as connected to the characters as I wanted to be. The world was a little bit confusing at points, and I really like the side characters more than the lead characters. But I'm still intrigued to know what happens now. So this is when I kind of grew on me. I just needed to read book two quicker to like remember what happened. I would have to reread book one and go into book two. Maybe that will happen someday. I just have so many other books that I like want to read that it's just not a high priority. But it did grow on me, and I did grow to like the characters. They weren't my favorite characters. So, and the last book I'm going to talk about is The Cruelty. This is a book that I got from New York City Comic Con, and I actually met the author when he called this a romance, and that's like what I went in thinking it was going to be like a double, like a mostly two characters throughout the entire novel, and that wasn't what it was. It was a very very dark novel, and the girl's growth in character was really not what I wanted out of the character. She basically became a totally different character, and I think I would have liked a little bit more levity or lighthearted moments in this book, and you just did not get that at all in this novel. And it was a very very dark subject matter that I think could have been made into a lighter story if she had someone with her, and that did not happen. Um, but I'll be curious to see what happens in book two. Will definitely be a rent from the library for me, but it did intrigue me. I just don't know if I would buy book two. So I wasn't a big fan of the main character, and she kind of grew on me throughout the novel. But I just wanted more like interaction. I wanted a romantic element. I never say that in a story, but to lighten up a story like this, I think it kind of needed it. And I'd be curious to see if book two has more of that element. So those are my top 10 books that I struggled to get through, and some here that I actually did grow up to really, really enjoy, and some series that I just have not continued on with or were not motivated to complete. Let me know in the comments what are some of your big books that you had a struggle to get through, or you just didn't love, or you went up really, really, really loving. Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later.